When your leftist radio tells you Georgia's in the sea, and you're thinking of your foes when you write that angry tweet, you know I don't have to tell you, and I mean it with all sass. Nobody asked. Oh, nobody asked. When you want to drink at Starbucks without having any guilt, and you want to ride upon the train without paying for your till, you know I don't have to tell you. I mean it with all sass. Nobody asked.
Nobody asked.
All right, the thing ended a little sooner than I was thinking.
Well, I can stretch it out and make it proper.
No.
Okay, I'm not here anyway. I'm not here.
Hey,
Leave the
hello, ladies and gentlemen, one and all in one, everyone. And from everyone comes our power. Divided we fall, together we stand. It's nobody asked. Woo! Oh, yeah. With Maria.
Hello.
That's my mother. And me. That's my me. Coming from a new studio under my literal bed. Look at that. It's holding up my bed. Look at that. It's me. I have to move my light. Whoopsies. Now I'm beautiful.
You're always beautiful.
Oh,
to me.
Never mind.
Can't you
now
see?
I'm still beautiful. Today, unions, the history of unions, union busting, and the now, which is the train union. That's very now. And
very
Starbucks
now.
union hearing. Unions, man. That's the shit we're talking about.
Yeah, man. Unions.
Yeah.
Shit.
What are they about, and why don't we need them? When our employers are so sweet and so kind.
So kind.
You know who I don't trust? My fellow man. You know who I do trust? Jeffrey Bezos. Jeff Amazon is the man who I want to dictate the terms of my life and employment, not my friends. Unions.
Family.
All right. Well, I'm going to introduce the topic today, but first, Mom, do you want to introduce the topic?
Oh, okay. So I know that you want to introduce the topic, but I love introducing that. Oh, my bad.
Today's episode is sponsored by milkshakes.
Ooh,
milkshakes, they're a dairy product. They're quite sweet, and they're so cold, and I recommend that you get one. And then let's say that you have one, and also I have one. And then here's my straw. And then my straw reaches across the room and into your milkshake. And then I put my mouth around the straw and I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. Milkshake.
Why are you drinking my milkshake?
Well, that was for people that have seen There Will Be Blood.
Oh, it's my milkshake though. It's my milkshake.
No. I have the straw. Wealth is to be exploited, and labor is wealth. And I drink your milkshake. Dude, I was listening to The Daily recently, the New York Times podcast, where they give you like a 30-minute snippet about some subject of what's going on. And I was listening to this. It was one about cobalt deposits that are in the sea, and these different mining contracts for attempting to get metals for electric cars.
Sure.
And these people that are doing it, of course, it's for electric cars, so they're rightly they believe that what they're doing is for the environment, but they're also definitely not so subtly taking advantage of some policies to take advantage of third world countries for
that would never happen.
Cobalt deposits that are theirs. And I don't know, maybe it took me a long time to catch this, but the whole time it felt like they were avoiding an analogy to old oil barons. And then they cut to the narrator of The Daily, and he says, and then what Barron said to me, and this dude's literal name was Barron, this guy that was taking advantage of these cobalt deposits. And I was like, Uh-oh, choose a new job, my guy. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
You know, do names matter? Because I feel like, was it you or your brother that went to school with a girl named Tyranny? And I was like, that just
did.
feels like a dangerous name to give somebody.
Tyranny. Yep, I went to school with Tyranny. She was at my middle school,
Yeah.
and that's that story.
I'm just saying, you know, I just feel like
No.
name your kids things that sound, I mean, Baron sounds powerful, but can it sound powerful in a positive way? Is that a thing? I don't know.
Dude. So, I mean, I've already said this, but if the first kid's a boy, he's going to be named Cedar. But if the first kid's a girl, Mayhem. That's what we're going for, okay? We only have strong women in this family. And if she's not genetically a strong woman, that name, you know, it's like the opposite
carry her through.
Of the... Well, isn't there a country song about a boy named something? A
boy named Sue. A boy named Sue.
Bada bing. Sue's not even that girly.
Not in the grand scheme of things.
Got to be like a boy named Brittany, you know?
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So unions, you know?
Yes.
Unions are, you know, that there's something that kind of springs out of capitalism. One of the many things that springs out of capitalism that's just so perfect the very first time that it comes out. You know, there's an employer, and they have the money and also the means of production for creating, let's say, a product, right? In general, a business is trying to sell some sort of a product, and your employer both has the money initial, and also they bring in the money for whatever thing that they're selling. And then theoretically and hopefully, they will give you some portion of that money for your labor. And the idea is, and people, you know, it's an exploitation of labor, but it has to be an exploitation of labor, is that your labor is worth more to them than the money that they're going to give you, which is why they make that deal. However, because they have the means of production, your labor without them, the employer, doesn't make things. And this is the arrangement between employers and employees, right? However, when companies get a certain amount large, really not that big at all, what they'll find is that there's multiple vendors of the labor, let's say, potential employees. And because there are multiple vendors of labor and there's not proper information flow between these employees, they're able to take advantage of the labor and maybe pay an unbelievably small amount, maybe not give good benefits. And because you're a single worker in a negotiation with somebody with much more leverage, the money, and you're not able to combine the total concept of labor into one pool in the way that an employer is able to combine the total concept of giving money into one pool, there's an unequal playing field in terms of negotiations between the employer and the employee. And thus was born the concept of a union when the laborers said, wait, for the company to work, we need to make things with our labor, right? And somebody said, yes. And they went, okay, here's what I'm thinking. We all act the same way. And then if they don't come to the bargaining table, then we all don't do labor. And whereas one of us not doing labor is replaceable, us all agreeing we are not going to do labor brings things to a standstill. Just like them saying they're not going to pay us would bring things to a standstill. And so then we can negotiate, because we do want to work, right? We do want money.
Correct.
But we can, if the contract is not to our standards, if it doesn't make sense, we can make that decision as a group and have equal bargaining power. And the other guy said, yeah. And so the union was born, right? It's a beautiful thing. It really is a very capitalist idea, because theoretically, everything in capitalism is people entering into win-win contracts and advocating for themselves. Now, the thing is that there's a few different cracks and crevices to the concept of capitalism that will prevent this from happening. But a union is deeply capitalist. Everyone has the same information. You combine your bargaining power in order to participate in a contract. It's the concept of capitalism, which is why it drives me crazy that slowly, so that in the 1920s, labor unions were incredibly powerful, and especially post the Great Depression, labor unions became more and more powerful as workers became disillusioned with the concept of business owners having their best interests at heart. Meritocracy was not as accepted a concept in America as it was previously. There were many immigrants who believed that they had no opportunity to create businesses. And so there wasn't this weird thing, which was like, well, I'm a laborer because I'm bad. This idea that's kind of been, that has slowly been introduced into American life. And they're above me because they're so special and so smart. And therefore, I owe them my labor because they're just so special and so sweet, and they have the money.
They're doing me a gift of giving me a job.
Yes.
It's such a gift that they give me to employ me and exploit my time and effort.
Yes. And imagine in the 1920s when there was a much lower number of jobs than there were people that wanted jobs, seeing the process of employers attempting to find those employees. And because they had so much power and selection, what people began to see was favors being handed out to friends, there being no meritocracy at all in terms of giving out those jobs. And the lasting effect of the Great Depression was that people were disillusioned with in employers and believed that in order to prevent another depression, they needed to combine all of their assets, which their asset is that labor, in order to prevent employers from taking advantage of them. And so unions became incredibly strong, especially in working cities like Pittsburgh, New York City. New York City is now considered like a weird, like, it's interesting how the view of New York City has changed, but it really is like a deep blue Democrat city, but not like a leftist Democrat, like a liberal pro-union city. And there are some great videos of union leaders in New York that these cities ended up being somewhere in the realm of 70 to 80% union participation. And this was the peak of unions. And everything was perfect. And the mob didn't run any of them. No. As with everything, there were problems. And those problems then get emphasized and everything changes.
And twisted and exploited and made to look like that is what the norm is for a union.
That's what
the mafia running a union is probably not the norm. Most unions are run by people in the company who care about the people in the company, at least to some degree.
Yep. But this was what happened. And slowly, the reality of a union is that when you are in it, you need to keep the other workers in it because the power of the union is from participation, right? A union that has 100% of the employees involved versus 85%, that's not 15% less powerful. That's like 70% less powerful for that union. So union participation is incredibly important. And so one of the things that happens is that, wow, my dog just came down the stairs of the that go to my bed and he scared the shit out of me. So what happens was in organizations where unions were not required, there needed to be some bullying to get people to participate in the unions because there were dues to these unions. And so if you looked at it at an individual level as a new employee, you would have to pay some percentage, let's say up to 5% of your check, which is not negligible, right? That's thousands of dollars a year in today money to the union. And we're getting an echo right now.
That was me. No, that was me.
Okay. You have to pay thousands of dollars to this union. And what people were discovering was because it's a certain amount of work for an employer to maintain multiple types of contracts for the same kind of work, when a union would negotiate a certain deal, it would be given to non-union members. And this is called the free rider dilemma, the free rider problem, which is that an employer is actually incentivized to give the same deal to everyone. One, in terms of just logistics, but also because people will see that it's only a downside to be in the union on an individual level. If you're the one person that's not in the union, you get that union contract money, but you don't have to pay dues. You end up making out best. The free rider dilemma is a big problem because the union existing is what gets them that contract. But on an individual level, you have to self-sacrifice to make sure that union exists. And a small number of people not being in the union could allow unions to collapse. And
this is interesting.
And as unions became more prevalent, businesses who are the employers are negatively affected in terms of the amount of profit they're able to reap is decreased by the existence of unions. And so there was a lot of money in figuring out how do we get these things out of here, right? And so there was a big fight that was fought in the courts in terms of what employers were allowed to do with unions. And so some wins were gotten from those, right? In terms of founding a union, technically these businesses are not allowed to fire employees for attempting to organize. They're not allowed to intimidate people out of organizing, etc. In theory, especially at the time. However, some laws got passed that, especially by the Reagan administration, but there were multiple administrations that did this, called right to work legislation. And most people have probably heard this term, right to work. It's actually a term that in Europe has a very specific meaning and is actually pro-laborer. In America, right to work is an anti-labor union type of legislation, which doesn't allow private corporations to be union houses or closed houses. What are those? Closed houses are union houses in which, in order to work, you must be in the union. So what a union will do is it'll get that labor force participation, and then in collective bargaining with the employer, they will include becoming a closed house. So in order to work here, you need to be a part of the union. This prevents that free rider problem. A union house is a house in which you're able to hire someone that's not currently in the union on the promise that they will join the union, in most cases, within the calendar year. So it's a house that creates union participants. I believe right now 27 states have right to work laws that don't allow private corporations to enter union securities union security contracts like union houses and closed houses.
So by that you're saying they don't require. 27 states have rules that don't force you to join a union or won't allow you to force employees to it.
Yeah, won't allow you to be a closed or a union house. And this is what creates the cracks. And if you look at here, let me show you a map of states here, because you'll be like, huh, what an interesting set of states.
It's interesting because when I hear, what did you call it, right to work laws, I always take that to mean sort of the opposite, that basically an employer has the right to fire you without any justification whatsoever. So almost the opposite of a right to work theory.
That's like an interesting third participant in the idea of right to work, because it's meant to sound like, and this was how people would argue for right to work laws, is that by forcing somebody to be in a union, you would take money away from them. There's obviously some anti-union people that say that unions take away strength of the employer, and so companies that have unions are less likely to succeed, and then there will be fewer employers, therefore fewer employees, therefore everyone dies in hellfire, that kind of logic. And so right to work is meant to say unions prevent employees from existing, and you have the right to be an employee. You can't be prevented from being an employee. That was their kind of logic to calling it this. But all of these states prevent union and closed houses. And so what you'll see is they create the cracks in the foundation of these unions that are sure to prevent unions from existing. Because the free rider problem is very appealing to individual members of, the free rider problem always collapses these unions in that the union exists, right? The contract then does look cushy because the union exists. And so members will say, well, things are good, therefore I don't need a union. You might find this logic in other famous places like coronavirus protections. Things are good, therefore I don't need the union. And so I'm not going to pay for the union. Therefore, the union doesn't exist. Therefore, we lose all these cushy restrictions. And what have we seen since this this state right to work law passed? A bunch of these states passed it. The government also sets a precedent of being an open house, which it doesn't require workers to be in unions. And between the 1930s and 40s and now, there are, I believe it's something crazy like 80% lower union participation. That's changed recently, but these laws created the foundation for unions collapsing. And in addition to that, what have we seen? Pensions have all but disappeared, right?
Yes, they have.
I have never seen a job. Look, man, I'm looking for some pretty cushy jobs out there. Google, Amazon's, the Apples, all of these. None of them have pension plans. They only have 401k plans, which are significantly worse for the worker. And various different, the length of the work week, expectations of leave, family leave, have all slowly been chipped away at by employers because there's no longer a combined bargaining power of all of these individuals. And so the only jobs where you truly have those best benefits are expert level jobs where your work is so sought after that there is not a presumed replacement. So blue collar work has had lower wages in comparison to total cost of living. There are worse benefits, all because, well, I mean, it's hard to say all because, largely because unions do not exist because of the free rider problem. And this is the legislation that leads us to where we are now. And I believe that most companies, especially labor companies, believed that with 10, 15 more years, unions would essentially not exist. But for a little guy named Gen Z, baby, who is not believing in this bullshit, in this bullshit logic of business where suffering is the most positive ideal, where employers,
suffering's a virtue.
where employment is a gift bestowed upon the employee rather than a contract entered into by two equal parties. These ideas were banished by Gen Z, the goats, also by some millennials. I'll give millennials a little bit of credit. I mean, I do straddle the line, so I feel sympathies towards both. I mean, really, actually, millennials are pretty good. But millennials have been getting too much shit. You know who needs to get shit, Mom?
Is it me?
Gen X, bro.
Yep, it's me.
Y'all motherfuckers have not been doing shit, okay? So where are these Gen X's that are supposed to be running for office, okay? You're getting beaten out by old men with dementia. Start getting it together, you motherfuckers. What on earth?
For reals. We've been beaten down and ignored for so long that just feels like a nice, comfortable place for us, you know? Yeah. We raised kids that we thought, man, you guys can be something special. But for us right now, while we don't think suffering is a virtue necessarily, it's all we have left. You know? But no, I feel what you're saying. I feel what you're saying a lot. I was one of those free riders, right? I was
technically Gen Z, actually. So.
He's right on the line. I was one of those free riders at the post office. So the post office has at least 3 unions, depending on what type of job you have. And, you know, my job was definitely wrapped into a contract that I didn't understand at all. And when I looked it up, I was like, this contract might help the regular. This contract does not help me. So if I had stayed much longer, I would have joined the union first to make sure that I didn't get what I need there. And if I didn't, I would have started my own union. That's where I was at working that job. I was like, I'm not being served. This union is serving these other people here. It's not serving me. My time is being wasted and taken advantage of. And this is a perfect segue into what's going on, because I would tell you, in the post office, I was on call all of the time. And it was very hard, because it was like, okay, I don't have to work tomorrow. I should be able to sleep in. I should be able to do what I need to do. Right. And then you'd hear the phone ring at 7 a.m. and you'd go, oh my God, I do not want to answer that phone. Let me pretend I didn't hear it. But so if we talk about what's going on right now with the railroad workers, they are not allowed to not answer that phone if it rings. If they do not answer that phone within 2 hours and get to work within 2 hours while they're on call, they were going to lose points. And this point system, well, we'll get to the point system. First, let's back up. How did this problem with the railroad workers start? Because we've had railway unions for a long time. So back in, well, this is a concept that started in the 90s, but it really took off probably around 2015 in the United States. It's called precision scheduled railroading. And what they would do is, in order to increase their profits and to be more efficient, if you will, what they would do is they would consolidate all of their freight trains, right? And it would be, not just goods. It would also be things like, fuel or coal or whatever. They would consolidate all of that onto one train, and they would stick to a very specific schedule. So the result of that would be you would end up with trains that are now like 3 miles long, because the train was full, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we don't leave till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So let's just add all those extra trains on to the 4 o'clock train. So you end up with 3 mile long trains. They lose some of the smaller routes, right? So they're just going to do big, long routes that get goods from where they're most needed. And then that's where your tractor trailers will come pick them up from there. They're going to abandon the smaller routes. They're going to make all their money on the big routes using precision scheduling. And what they would do also is they cut, like, there were so many numbers and so many inconsistent numbers that I can't swear by any number, but I want to say they shrunk 29% of the workforce. So we're talking like 35,000 employees since 2015 that they have eliminated, because they've decided that this more efficient model uses less people and increases their profits. And so that's where this all kind of really started, was with these staffing cuts that resulted from this more efficient thing, right? Because it's all about money at the end of the day. Now, the current strike that we're dealing with has started in 2019. It's not really a strike yet, right? The current negotiations for a new contract started in 2019. And there is no new contract at this point. They are still, they've been negotiating. And so we have some interesting laws in the United States, because how important is the railroad? How important is commerce to our entire economy? We take it for granted. We don't pay that much attention to the railroad and how it moves goods from all over the country to all over the country. But if the railroads did have a strike, it would be a cascading problem throughout the entire economy. I don't know what we would do. It would really jack us up pretty hard.
Yep.
So there's a Railway Labor Act that started in the 1920s. And what it does is it forces arbitration. So it basically takes the ability to strike away from the workers in the unions. They can't just strike. They are forced to come to the table and negotiate with the railway companies. And the railway companies are forced to as well, right? Everybody has to come to the table. And they've created a national mediation board to mediate this. And so what's happened is they've been trying to mediate this for several years now, this contract from 2019, and it's gone nowhere. And so because it's gone nowhere, and that's the only thing that has given them the ability to strike now, is that they have done mediation, and the National Mediation Board is like, yeah, man, we can't reach an agreement. And that's after years and years. Then what happened is that, Biden and everybody, they can see quite clearly what's the result of this. Our economy is going to collapse, and we are already in kind of a shitty situation with inflation and everything else. We can't let the rest of the economy collapse. Everybody's trying to avoid the economy of the United States collapsing, but there's all of these other people that seem to really want it to happen, judging by what's going on here. So the Biden administration, they enact what's called the Presidential Emergency Board. They did that in July 2022. And the first thing it did is it gave a 30-day cooling off period and said, okay, let's just keep things the way they are for another 30 days while we try to figure it out, right? So September 16th, that was going to be over. So the unions are ready to strike because nothing has happened. And so the Secretary of Labor and Biden and the unions and the railroad companies have a big meeting, a 20-hour meeting, where they hammer out the current deal, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, okay, we've solved the problem. We've negotiated a ceasefire, if you will. Now we can keep the railways going. Yay, our economy. I've saved the day. Well, he hasn't saved the day. So, man, it's really hard getting information about this. And I think that's why the news is covering it, but not in a way that you're like, I understand what's going on, because nobody knows what's going on. How many unions are involved? What's going to happen? I've got 20 unions. I've got 12 unions. There's so many unions involved. And if one of those unions says, nah, we ain't doing this, then it's over with. Mm-hmm. Now, the way these unions work is they say, okay, we've kind of accepted this as a good proposal that we would like to bring to you, the worker. And then the worker looks at it and they have to vote on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And many of them are not pleased right now with this negotiated deal. So the negotiated deal, they have given them, it looks like a 24% raise that's possibly happening over a 24% raise over 5 years. Okay. It sounds like they may have lost more than that previously. So this doesn't really feel like anything to them, to some of them. About $5,000 to maybe $12,000 in bonuses. See, this is the things. I can't give you hard numbers because everything I read gives me different answers. So you can imagine.
I'm sure it must have to do with the different position, right? Like an engineer versus a other person.
Yeah, a lineman or something. Yeah, absolutely. It might. And that's part of the problem is there has been no releasing of this contract or agreement. There's no actual contract that is signed and agreed to because the workers now have to vote on it. And the unions now have to present it to them in a way that makes it sound palatable. And now they've also gotten allegedly 3 extra unpaid days off for doctor's appointments, or possibly 1 extra day off. It really depends on what you read. So that might vary also by position. And so I want to say, so back in February of this year, keep in mind, their last contract was in 2019. So they are operating with no contract, but several of the railways instituted this new point system policy. It's not in any contract. Nobody has agreed to this policy. We must make that clear. But this policy is really a big point of contention and has really caused a great deal of anger among the railway workers. So basically what you would do is you would start off, here's 30 free points they give you, okay? Now, if you work for, let's say you work 2 weeks straight where you're on call for that entire time, we'll give you 4 extra points. You're like, okay, what do I do with that? And let's see. If you can use those when you need to take a day off, right? And when you take a day off, you'll lose some points. Now you can lose between 4 and 25 points in a go, depending on the day. Because some days, if it's a holiday, if it's the weekend, those are considered more critical time periods. So how dare you want to take one of those days off? That's okay. A no. You're not going to take those days off. So if you do, even if you're sick, even if you got in a car accident and cannot physically get to work, they do not care what your reasons are. You're going to lose points. Now, if your points get down to 0, you will get suspended for 10 days. And then they'll give you back, let's say they give you back 25 or 15 points, and then you lose those again. Now you're suspended for 20 days. If it happens a third time, you're fired, right? And it can be very, very easy for this stuff to happen if you have a real illness, if you have a family member who's ill, any number of ways that a normal job would allow you, to take time off as needed. And so, here's the thing. So they're basically on call 24/7. All of the time they're on call. They are supposed to have a day off every 2 weeks, according to labor laws, every 6 days. But according to reality, once a month. You know what I mean? So how are you possibly going to have a doctor's appointment? Let's say it even is a day that you have off. You schedule your doctor's appointment, but you're on call and they call you up saying you need to come in. Not, hey, could you come in? Somebody called off. Do you have the ability to come in today? No, you have to come in within 2 hours or you're going to lose these points on a day that you already had off. So it turns into an impossible system. That is why they are angry.
It sounds so similar to Amazon and their point system. And
do they have them too?
So yeah, they're warehouse workers. Now, what's interesting is that presumably these train systems want workers to stay, right? I mean, to me, it seems unlikely that they're able to staff the amount that they want. And I imagine that they want more labor. So these point systems, especially the way you're describing these kind of inhuman point systems, famously increase turnover of positions. And
that's exactly
Amazon's goal is to increase turnover. If you go full conspiracy theorist, I'm on the board of. Here's my thing. Everyone should just choose one conspiracy that they're like, yeah, I'm all in on this conspiracy, and then we should just evaluate people on the conspiracy they're on board with, right? If you're like the moon landing is faked, you're like, all right, that's a dumb conspiracy to be on board with, right? If you're like me and you're like Amazon is intentionally increasing turnover so that they can go to Congress and say there's no more labor force, it's just people are unable to do the job that we want them to do. So we should be able to get all of our tax exemptions for being a large-scale employer while still working to automate all of our positions. That's the conspiracy. Collins on, baby, because they're playing the long game. That was a bit of an aside.
So,
I find this system very interesting.
You know, as you talk about the idea of turnover, like turnover has become a huge problem, even for people that have been there for a long time. The average age of a train conductor is 45 years old. Okay, so 45-year-olds are Gen X, right?
Yep.
And we are the worst, right? We suffer. And guess what? We're also, we probably are at an age where we need to be going to the doctor at least somewhat regularly. And what's happening is people can't get to the doctor, and they in fact are dying on the job. They're having heart attacks because they're getting called up. They've got no time off to take care of themselves when they feel weird. And they are literally dying on the job. Hey, we found him we found Aaron Heights in the engine room somewhere between, Iowa and somewhere else. Yeah, no, that happened. And that's kind of what sparked an additional level of anger amongst people. I also want to say that I think we don't think about what it's like to be a rail worker, and you're on one of those long trains, right? That's going from point A to point B. Are you going to be home that day to go to bed? Do you ever think about it? The answer is no, you're not. You are somewhere else in the country. You are sleeping in a hotel room. You're eating whatever's conveniently located near the hotel, and then you're getting back on the train, after your designated amount of rest time, and you're driving the train again. So you're not home for your family, even when you're not at work. So families are collapsing. So what is it that you work for? You work to take care of your family generally, right? They don't see their families. There's no time. They have no days off. And when they're not at work, they are not home. They are somewhere else. It's bad juju, bad quality of life.
Yeah. And I saw even in that union contract that they had negotiated for additional unpaid sick leave days. And it's like,
why do I have to negotiate for that? Why do I have because of the point system, right?
It's unpaid, bro.
Yeah, you're not paying me. I'm just negotiating that I don't want to be penalized. So part of the deal that was brokered with Biden and the labor secretary does involve that, right? I told you about the raise and the additional sick day. Also, they said that they can't penalize people anymore for taking days off. You can't penalize them for legitimate, I'm going to the doctor, I'm sick. You can't penalize people for that anymore. And it is interesting because how do I don't even know if I wrote this down. There was a part where one of the CEOs of the train company is like, listen, they do get 3 weeks of paid vacation a year. They are allowed to use their points when they need to call off. They need all of this is okay. They make it sound like there's no problem. You've got 3 weeks. Well, when can you use your 3 weeks? Are you going to approve my 3 weeks? The answer is no. They're not going to. Well, they're going to squeeze you.
Are they compensated for like what a lot of what my last job did when it requires you work on off hours is that all of those off hours you get commensurate vacation days. So if people are working on weekends, like are you getting extra? Okay, so you don't have 3 weeks of vacation. You have 15 days off guaranteed. I mean,
Maybe.
That's not.
But you can't take it.
Much fewer than the rest of us get. We all get like 104 and then 2 weeks of vacation, and that's like the minimum. I mean,
yeah, no, they fall under a completely different contract and completely different rules than the rest of the labor force, and we're seeing it come to a head right now because the railways are so important. It is, we can't close them down. But how else are we going to get these people taken care of? I think we've had this idea in America, and you definitely touched on it, where if you're educated, and you make a certain, you're in a certain status economically, then you deserve what's coming to you. And if you're a blue collar worker, you don't. You don't deserve time with your family. You should have worked harder, as if that's a thing. It's ridiculous, the level of suffering that has become expected of people to just accept that you're not going to see your family. If you wanted to see your family more, you should be smarter and gone to school and worked harder, as if there's any way to work harder than this. It's cuckoo. So I just feel like there's a lack of respect that we have for blue collar workers, and we're kind of seeing that seep everywhere in our culture. I think that's why we've got how Trump was able to invigorate people, because he gave people that felt voiceless because they were working hard but not necessarily making it far enough ahead. He let them feel important. And I think we should all be making them feel important because they're important. Look, we're seeing it right here. How important are railway workers that we take for granted and don't even think about? Exceptionally important.
They should be made feel important in more ways than just this. I mean, it's crazy how, like, unflinchingly these corporations that were calling certain workers essential during the pandemic then turn around and fuck them over immediately after they're no longer, they're no longer essential and things were able to open up again. And it needs to be more than in name only. Also, just in terms of legislation, penalizing people for taking advertised benefits of any job should be illegal. What
do you mean?
That'll help tech companies too. What's up?
What do you mean?
Penalizing people for taking sick leave, penalizing people for taking vacation, penalizing people for taking advantage of employee programs. All of these have become more prevalent as the online market for jobs has increased, right? What you see at face value for a job has become very valuable in terms of the number of applications that these companies get. So companies put a lot of work into what they're able to advertise. And one of the big ones, I mean, we're getting away from blue collar and into more tech space. One of the big ones, and I worked for a company like this, is unlimited vacation. Doesn't that sound so fun?
Yeah.
Well, what does unlimited vacation mean, Mom?
Yeah, what's that mean?
That's what I had at Brandwidth. I had unlimited vacation, which means you don't have vacation because it's theoretically unlimited. There's no 2-week quota, right? Mm-hmm. The thing that happens if you have 4 weeks of vacation is that you're expected to use it, and it's like at the end of the year you go, oh, I got 4 weeks of vacation. I'm gonna take the last 3 weeks of December off or whatever. I didn't use it this year, and everyone goes, of course you have 4 weeks. When you have unlimited, what happens is at the end of the year, you don't have 2 weeks left or anything like that. And the question of taking vacation is a question of, it turns into a well, have you thought about your team? Is your team able to handle you not being there? You can't take 3 months off in a row or you'll be penalized, right? You can't. So what it turns into is vacation's actually a game now of how much do you want to impress your boss. If you take vacation, it's actually showing that you're not invested in the job. And so we'll advertise that you have unlimited vacation. But let me tell you something. It does two things. I tried to take vacation, and it was much harder to get it approved when I was at Brandwidth, especially towards the end when I realized there was no future there. Try and take vacation. Oh, well, you got it. The rules would change all the time. Also, when you do get laid off during a pandemic, they don't have to pay you that as severance. There's no vacation to pay you. You didn't earn anything. Fucking Brandwidth. So yeah. So
but I feel like that is actually very, very common. There's so like most jobs you'll get a certain number of weeks off, paid vacation a year, and sometimes they'll roll over into the next year, and you can accumulate like 120 days, right? After that, it's use them or lose them, right? But if you use them, it's exactly what you're saying. What about your team? What about everybody else that's going to have to pick up your slack?
What
this
about my team?
This is your job. This is what we entrust you to do. How dare you need or desire to use the time you've earned off?
It's fucking nuts. So it's, you know what it's like customers that say the customer is always right. They've entered into a fucking fantasy contract in their mind. Now, when an individual does that, I give them some leeway because individuals can be stupid. But when a system is stupid and it rests its foundation upon some idea that you're not in a contract with an employer, bro, and it starts at the very beginning. When you get told how to interview for jobs, you realize what a sham process it is because they're like, lie. And this is what employers are looking for, your ability to lie that you're passionate about the job. There are some jobs you might be passionate about, but guess what? They're not advertising on ZipRecruiter, bro, because the ones that people are passionate about, there's a bunch of people that are trying to get them, like writing or making music, right? No one is fucking passionate about stocking shelves at Ralph's, okay? They want a paycheck. But no, when you interview for it, that you get, well, why do you want to work at Ralph's? Oh, I'm really into the Ralph's motto. Shut the fuck up, okay? With this bullshit where you're expected to lie. It's a contract. You need someone to stock your shelves. I have the ability to stock shelves. Let's figure out how much money that's worth because there's someone else that might be able to stock shelves. Are they going to accept less money than me? Are they going to do it as fucking quick as me? Look at how quickly I put cans on this shelf. That is why I want to sell my labor to you. And I will sell 40 hours a week. And if you are like, why are you clocking out on time? I'm like, well, because you didn't tell me you want 40 and a half hours. If you did, that would have been part of the fucking contract, bro. When I buy a car from a car dealership, I'm not like, whoa, why didn't this also come with a bike? Put the bike in the contract then. Why? What? This is what is so crazy about the Gen X logic of this, of like, well, you got to show your employer that you're invested in this and whatnot. You know what I want my employer to know? And if I'm ever an employer, here's what I want to know from my employees, that they understand how a deal works. You have something I want. Let me offer you money. I value that money less than the thing that you're able to give me. You value the money more than the thing that you want to give me. And that's how a sale happens. Chipotle sells burritos because they'd rather have $10 than the burrito. But what would be nuts, what would be crazy is for me to buy the burrito and then for them to give it to me and me to be like, is that it? You're just going to give me a burrito when I bought a burrito? Aren't you passionate about burritos and you want to give me some extra fucking burrito because you love burritos? Wow, you might lose my business. Hey, buddy, shut the fuck up. I make good burritos. You buy a burrito, you get a burrito. What is this logic? And it's the foundation of work recently.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the people that move up at companies are people that drink the fucking Kool-Aid on it. So then you'll have supervisors who lived this way being like, "What? Why aren't you living like me?" And I'm like, "Because you're sad inside. Because you're sad.
Yeah.
Because you're a company man. Join the union where we realize it's a fucking contract. Take Econ 101, okay, and realize that the thing you have to offer exists on a marketplace. And when you sell it, sell it. And when people want add-ons, advertise a rate for your add-ons. Or leave that job. Fuck that. God,
Yeah.
what
Fuck
is wrong with employers?
I mean, they're trying to squeeze every nickel out of you, right? So part of, the Gen X mantra, right? Of, okay, if I suffering is a virtue, and if I just keep working, I'll get further ahead. I'll just keep doing more work to show how loved I am and how much I love this job, right? It's ridiculous, of course, but it's what happens. And then you get a person that starts doing 3 people's worth of work, right? It starts out, maybe you think you're doing it temporarily because Ginny's out on maternity leave, or Fred died, so I'm taking on more work. I mean,
Fred died.
Fred died. Okay, I'll do some extra work until you hire somebody. But then it turns out, look at that, she can do the work of 3 people. Why would I ever hire 2 more people when I can get her? And she's doing it at the price of 1 person. Why would I ever do that? Yeah. So they're just going to continue to take advantage of you. And that's why you hear terms right now like quiet quitting, which is just doing the job that is your job title, right?
Yeah, it should be fulfilling your fucking contract.
Of course it should. Of course it should. But, propaganda, for some reason, the propaganda machine on this side is stupid, and we call things dumb things that make no sense in the wrong direction.
God, and that fucking bald blobfish looking dude from Shark Tank on TikTok, like, if you're quiet quitting, you're a loser. Dude, when we start eating the rich, I'm eating you first, and I'm doing it slow. Shut the fuck up. You're a loser for quiet quitting. You are a capitalist advocate who's like, the capitalists are always like, people should fight for their individual self-interest, and then the system works. And then when people start fighting for their self-interest, they act like, oh no, my economy.
Yes.
Bro, it's just so nutter butters. And also, if we're talking about people advocating for their own self-interest, doesn't it make sense that when somebody leaves the corporation and you say you got to take on their responsibilities until this thing, and then they do it, and you realize that you can pay $60K a year for something you were previously paying $130K a year for? If you're the company, if you're in the company's head, wouldn't it totally make sense for them to be like, I mean, let's see how long this goes, because I just got the best coupon ever, okay? Who has ever gotten a lifetime 50% off coupon for anything of value? Well, you just gave it to them, bro. You gave them, I'll do their fucking job, yeah, and don't pay anything. Man, if only, Mom, if only something existed where we could all make the decision together so that we don't feel like when the person with the leverage, the person with the money comes to us, we need to impress them. We just go, this is what my contract says. And you know that the other laborers are behind you, so somebody else won't go over your head, or you won't lose an opportunity. What if all of the people that work for this employer that's clearly trying to take advantage of you were able to combine their assets into a greater bargaining power? And you know what we could do is this asset of our labor, we could unite it, and then when we unite it, we would be in it would have layers of workers. We'd be in an onion, a union.
Yes.
And then in that union, we would be able to negotiate a contract to prevent the employer from taking advantage of us, and then that contract would constitute the deal for us selling our labor. And we would know that we have a system. No, let's not do that. Let's make right to work laws. And let's vote for Republicans who tear down the institution of unions and lift up these fucking labor barons. God.
Yep. Let's collectively bargain. And the other nice thing about collectively bargain is maybe you're not very good at getting your point across, right? You know that you're getting screwed over, but you don't know how to say it in a way that's going to make a difference. And you know what? You find somebody in your company that can. You make them the leader of the union. You get them to help you negotiate, or you hire lawyers. You do whatever you need to do collectively because you're paying your dues, right? That's going to help you make that happen. And you work together using your best assets to do the thing that's going to help all of you. And I think I read it with regards to this railroad thing. I read it. One of the union leaders was saying, we don't like this contract. We're probably not going to sign it. It's about time that they realize that together we outnumber them. And this is always the case. The workers always outnumber the people at the top.
Bro,
they want to keep us weak. Huh?
That it's only the idea of power behind the king that is preventing you from killing him. And the fact that you know as an individual that if you run up on the king, King's Guard is going to behead you, right? But if the group does it, it'll work. I'm telling you. So,
somebody's going to get through. If enough of you are launch yourself at the king,
it's
somebody's going to
amazing
get
in a country of people that just coddle the balls of democracy. We love democracy here. Democracy is so sick. And that's what makes America great. And we spread democracy to these other countries. And we love it, except in our corporations. That's a monarchy. And it should be a monarchy. And you know what? It being a monarchy is actually good for me. Because in a democracy, you have to show up to vote. And you have to pay for the system and the toll workers, and the taxes might be higher. And so actually a monarchy is good for me. And I love the king, that he deserves to be the king. God made him the king, and he was born into it. And I don't like what you're saying to me. What the fuck is wrong with people? Use your logic here and generalize it. What makes democracy good? Why do you learn a lesson in one place and you go, yes, this makes sense. And then you see another place where this knowledge could be applied and you go, no. And when I was in preschool, they taught me to share toys with other kids. But now that I'm a worker, that lesson was about toys. It wasn't about self-sacrifice for the greater good. That was about sharing toys with 4-year-olds. Now I'm going to free ride through my fucking union. I'm good.
Yep. I feel like we crushed this. Hey, let's go to Starbucks.
We didn't even talk about Starbucks at all. No, fuck Starbucks. Hey, if you're at a Starbucks, hey, I know we got 4 viewers, and statistically, all 4 of you work for Starbucks. Unionize, bro. And they'll probably fire you because Starbucks knows they can get away with it. Mom, why do they know? Why do they know? It's because it's been almost a century of our government fucking with unions. And they have kneecapped, I almost said handicapped, whoopsies. They kneecapped our ability to find any sort of justice for union busting. And so these corporations know it. They know they can get away with it. You know what it's like. So most of my life, I was not chilling with rich people. I was chilling with people. And I learned how people act. And what they'll do is when there's like a fine for something, they'll go, well, I can't do that because there's a fine for it, right? I can't park there because I might get a parking ticket. There's the hotel threatens, fines for stealing. You can't do things because of the fear of a fine. And it goes into your brain as I can't do this. But then I started hanging out with rich people because I went to a school with a bunch of fucking rich people. And the craziest thing happened where I went into a hotel room populated by the rich, and they were smoking cigars in the hotel room. And when I tell you that I saw this and it broke my brain, I was like, it says no smoking on the door. And they said, actually, it doesn't say no smoking on the door. It has a cigarette with a cross through it. And then it says $450 fee for smoking. So we're going to pay the fee. It was like I had to solder new connections in my brain. This new idea that actually it's not allowed. It's just allowed if you're willing to pay the fee. And $450 to somebody that makes, I don't know, $5K a day, $10K a day. Come on, baby.
They're gonna do what they want.
We're celebrating. It's $450. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, we're smoking cigars in here. It blew my mind seeing this. Well, that's what Starbucks is doing. Starbucks is going, oh, you're going to find me? You're going to find me for firing this employee when it can prevent a union? Okay, find me, bro. Find me. It's like these basketball players that curse on TV because it's a 15K fine. Bro, they made $1 million that game. They don't care. These people don't care about the cigarette thing. Starbucks does not care about what the National Labor Relations Board can do. And the thing is that the barrier for evidence for these claims is so high that they're going, we can probably fire 20 people, and one of them, they'll prove that we did it, and we'll pay the fine because the value of doing it is so much greater than not doing it.
Yep. It is interesting.
It needs to be a felony.
Relative morality, right? Yeah. What feels immoral to you feels completely different to somebody with money. And we watch that all over the place. Money and power. We watched in politics how politicians, might behave differently than what they expect you, the regular guy, to do, right? These rules I've made for you guys. These rules don't apply to me. These are, you know what I mean? Like, I've got money and power. I can still do whatever I want. It's interesting and weird, but it's mostly interesting.
Mostly interesting. Man, that's some fucking bullshit.
It's some fucking bullshit. Are you wearing a postal hat? I wondered where my postal hat went. How did you get my postal hat?
You sent this to me.
I did? Because it's tight. It keeps scooching up on my head. That's what it was.
That's what's up.
Man, I forgot I sent it to you. I was looking for that in the wintertime. I was like,
you think that I stole your USPS beanie? I would do that, actually. That makes sense.
So I just always wore a Navy one. I wore one that said USS Simon Lake on it. But that one was big and squishy. It was a good one. Speaking of squishy.
I love those. Man, I miss my sweatshirt that's like the USS Shoup Athletic Department.
Uh-huh.
I wore that so much. That thing was sick.
It's a good one. That was a good one.
Well,
I think we crushed this.
Our viewers disagree, as they've slowly dwindled to 3.
They'll watch it on the replay, because if you came in the middle, as Sophie did, and she was like, I don't know what's going on, I'm gonna have to watch this on replay. I respect that. Hey, if you guys could drop a comment, if you are watching it on replay, just drop a comment in the comments. Tell us.
Drop a little commenty womenty.
Tell us if you have guilt about not showing up to work.
Tell us a story about a time that an employer made a request of you and you said, how about instead you eat my shit? I can tell a story about it.
I did kind of do that. I one day at the post office, I was like, do not call me up tomorrow. I have just worked, I can't remember how many days in a row. Do not call me. And he said, okay, fine. I definitely won't call you. You're right. You deserve a day off. Yeah. Does he call me? Yes, he does. So do I wander into work full of rage? I did. I was there for all of 3 minutes before I launched a cart across the room full of mail and then walked out of the room and left. So I did show up and then immediately left. Did I get written up for it? No, because going postal is a thing. You don't get written up for losing your shit at the post office. No, you're going to lose your shit there. It's going to happen. So yeah, I just threw a cart, just rammed that thing into a case and left.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy how those stories change, right? Once somebody does break, all the people that that the violent crime happens to, you're like, oh, those poor people. And sometimes I'm like, what'd you do though? Because there's so many fucked up stories. There's one in Connecticut, one that's actually pretty close to where I have some friends in Connecticut. I think Hartford, and some guy went into, it was like a packaging plant or something. No, it was a brewery, and I mean, it was shooting in this brewery. Disgruntled ex-worker, and I remember seeing it and being like, I mean, one, he shot other workers. So I'm a little bit like,
Oh,
well, that seems like the wrong
wait.
person.
No, that tracks too. That tracks.
Yeah, it's not that- yeah. But then I was like, what'd you do though? You know? And you can't find it. You can't find it. And I'm like, I want to read his manifesto. I want to read what you fucking did. I don't think that you deserve to die, maybe, but what'd you do though? Man, I mean, thank God that MiG-48 is in Kansas City, right? Because that would be their offices. They have these windows made of glass. I'm like, man, those would look great with a brick through them, but.
I worked at Panasonic at one point in the call center, back when people would call and say, I don't know how to turn on my VCR or whatever. Like, what temperature should I cook this chicken in my microwave? I mean, some of the dumbest questions you could possibly imagine. Yeah. There was some problem with the schedule. And then they basically decided to fire me because I didn't show up on a day that I wasn't normally scheduled for because they changed the schedule on me. I mean, it was a whole... And I was very mad about the whole situation. And my temptation to just give them a lawn job, because there was this nice big patch of beautiful green grass that just was begging for my car to just rip through, but I didn't.
I've never even heard of that. That's a clever one.
A lawn job is a clever one.
No, I've just never heard of it. I mean, so
it
comes up as clever because I've never heard of it.
Oh, there.
Yeah, I had a job. I had a job recently.
You got a job now. Recently,
I'm very close to having my own business, and I got 2. Did that tell you?
He did tell me.
All right, there we go. I'm very close to having my own business, and that will feel pretty good. Ellie is doing a little jig to indicate that she's proud of me, I think.
That's so nice. That's awesome.
Oh man. Yeah.
You look real cute though.
I had an employer ask me to work for free. Said, well, unfortunately, because of how we ran the business, we won't be able to pay you, but that's okay because your commission will be greater. And then I had the unmitigated gall to go, well, how much greater will the commission be? And then they responded, we're so disappointed that you would ask something like this. I just feel, after everything we did with giving you a job, I'm like,
that's the face.
Okay. And they went, we thought you were family. And I went,
your employer is never your family. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it.
Did you think that? Is that what you think? We could have been if you didn't think of me as a little piece of shit employee who you can just demand work of without paying. And they're like, well, but we were gonna find you a job waiting tables or something.
I can find that all by myself. Thanks.
That's so funny, dude.
That is so funny.
I scared my dog with that one. Oh man. If only I could write stand up about this. It's like it's too raw, It's too. I feel like I'm gonna seem. I've tried to write stand up about it, and I feel like I seem bitter. Do I seem bitter, Mom?
Listen, bitter comedy is definitely a genre. And I will say that you're kind of on fire today in general with the weeping and just the I'll just watch a steady decline of an emotional state. It was gorgeous. I'm like, yeah, he's getting ready to go on stage. I can feel it.
That's me. That's what I'm doing. I'm not losing sleep like I'm stressed about doing it. I'm losing sleep like I've been thinking about it so much that I'm coming up with ideas when I'm asleep, and then I'm getting up and writing them down. And I'm kind of all over the place because I was worried that I wouldn't have an idea of what to do. And the problem is actually I have so many ideas, and I am in a soup. So here's the thing. If I am ever a successful comedian, I'm not that worried about generating material.
Okay.
So that's good. I'm worried that I'm going to go crazy because everything I'm like, that's a bit. What would that bit be like? You know, did I tell you about the one the one I'm working on, the person obsessed with death?
No.
I didn't?
Was that Dad?
When you were on the road?
You told me something. What was the one on the road? I don't remember being
Syllabus?
about death. Huh?
Syllabus?
That was the one. Syllabus. Yes.
Okay. So that one in my head right now, that one is like I'm feeling confident on stage one. I'm a little bit worried about how judgy comedians are. And especially like with a showcase when people are evaluating my ability to do comedy, to go like super far in that direction. I feel like I could accidentally fall into like prop comic stereotype, something like that. Now, if it was absolutely magnificent, they would be unable to deny my glory, but I don't want to depend on magnificence. So the bit I've got right now is, I think it's very funny to talk about death for 5 minutes in a setting that is supposed to be about comedy. The concept is that I'm very worried because of the stage in my life that I'm in right now, that if I die, people will think that I was boring and that I just died normally. So every week,
okay.
I write a new, if you're reading this, I'm already dead. I write a new one of those notes to be discovered when people are like going through my belongings after I die, in case I get hit by a bus, in case, you know, a wheel from an airplane falls down onto me. So I write a new one of those every week out of an obsession with the idea that people just think I was a nerd that accidentally got hit by a car, right? I don't want that to happen. But here's the issue. My mom was visiting, so this is not real.
Okay.
My mom was visiting, and she
you.
found the note. And in a moment of, let's say, not clarity, I acted like she had found something very secret of mine, and that I acted all shifty about it. So now I have to die in the next week. And so I'm trying to figure out the way to do that. And that's kind of the set. Yep.
Interesting. You know, I have I thought about similar things sometimes, you know, because we have the family trust, right? And there's a section in there where you can write, you know, kind of what you want to happen with your body, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm always, you know, I have some fun ideas, but like, should there also be a confession? I'm like, why do I have nothing to confess? West went to hear the big, you know,
Nope.
like I want to confess something, but I have nothing to confess. So that does occur to me occasionally. Also, we found these 2 keys in your grandmother, you know, Grandma Peggy, in her stuff.
Uh-oh.
That go to a safe deposit box that she doesn't even know where is anymore. You know what I mean? And so it's like, what's in the safe deposit box? Who's got secrets? I need to know. I'm sure it's nothing exciting, but in my mind, it could be anything in that safe deposit box. It's a Schrodinger's cat situation. What's in the box?
I mean, it must be in Utah, right?
It's in Utah, yeah.
But it doesn't have like
I'm
a number on it?
It does. I've given the keys to your uncle so he can make some phone calls and figure out, does this safe deposit box even exist anymore? Is that bank location exist anymore? Where is it?
Oh, it's a bank safe deposit box, not a post office. All right.
Yeah. It's a bank one. Could be anything in there. Should I get one and fill it full of weird stuff? Should I get a safe deposit box? Make a bunch of fake, see if I can get some
idea. Yes.
Some fake passports and stuff. Make it seem like I lived a life of intrigue when I did not.
That is the bit right there.
Yeah. What kind of legacy am I leaving? I didn't know she was any of these things. I thought we just did a podcast together. Yeah.
Yep.
Ridiculous. Yeah. Sounds fun. I love it. Also, again, we crushed this for sure. Hopefully people watch it on replay and, you know, let us either know that we crushed it or let us know again about, you know, some employer guilt or nonsense. Some employer nonsense.
And hopefully next week I will have a story to tell about my first New York City open mic. So
yes, do it.
I tried to. There's one I'm excited for that's called Monday Night Jam, and it does get like a reasonable size audience, but it's not a showcase.
Okay.
But the spots for it fill up way faster than I was thinking. So like the sign up opens on Tuesday, and so I got on Tuesday at like 11 a.m. and it had already filled up. All their spots had filled up. I was like,
Oh wow.
So I have to figure out which one it's going to be. There's a Sunday one I think I want to do.
Do it. I'm excited.
I
Got to get out there. You're very talented, sir.
I'm anxious.
I
I'm
know.
so scared.
As I'm your mom, I think you're really talented.
I think you're talented too, Ma.
Thanks. I was not fishing. I just wanted you to know.
I know. You want to do stand-up comedy with me?
Yes, I would love to. Also, I don't know how that would work at all. But sure.
I think that'd be fun. We would just improvise, you know?
Yeah, but do I really know what I'm doing? No.
So this is my mom. Isn't that hilarious? All right, everyone.
All right.
It's time for the end of the
Oh,
podcast.
we're getting a song?
Yes. Put on the numbers.
Oh, the numbers. Let me put on the numbers. Let me put on the numbers. If I can find them. I seem to be unable to operate a computer. Oh, that's not the right button. Here we go.
Unions. They're good.
Yes.
Just like us. Thank you all for coming to our show. That's the end. I can't. Oh no, it's still live.
All right. Thanks for keeping us company. Bye. I can't operate my computer. There we go.